Captain Jake Morrison loved flying in the early morning. The sun was just coming up over the Rocky Mountains, painting the sky orange and pink. His patrol route took him around Denver every day at this time. 3 million people lived in the city below him. Most of them were still sleeping. Jake had been a pilot for 10 years. He flew for the Earth Defense Force, but there was never much to defend against. Earth was peaceful. The biggest problems were usually space junk or broken satellites. Sometimes he wondered if his job really mattered. That morning felt different. Jake could not explain why, but something seemed wrong. The air felt heavy. His radio was making strange crackling sounds. Even the birds seemed quiet. Dr. Lisa Campbell was driving from Boulder to Denver when she saw the first sign. She was a scientist who studied life forms from other planets. Not that anyone had ever found life on other planets. Her job was mostly guessing what aliens might look like if they existed. Lisa was visiting her sister in Denver. She had promised to take her nephew to the Science Museum. As she drove down the highway, she noticed her car radio stopped working. Then her cell phone died. The digital clock on her dashboard went blank. Other drivers were pulling over to the side of the road. Their cars had stopped working too. Lisa looked up at the sky. Something was moving up there. Something big. Mayor Bobby Hayes was having his morning coffee when his secretary ran into his office. She looked scared. "Sir, we have a problem," she said. "All the power is out in downtown. Phone lines are dead too. And people are saying they see something in the sky." Bobby walked to his window. Denver stretched out below his office on the 20th floor. The city looked normal, but he could see that the traffic lights were not working. Cars were stopped in the streets. People were getting out of their cars and looking up. Bobby looked up too. High above the city, the air was shimmering. It looked like heat waves on a hot summer day, but the morning was cool. The shimmering was getting stronger. Commander Rick Barnes was in the control room when all the screens went blank. He was Jake's boss at the defense base outside Denver. Rick had been a soldier for 20 years. He had never seen anything like this. "What happened to our systems?" Rick asked his team. "Everything is dead, sir," said one of the technicians. "Computers, radar, communication. It all stopped at the same time." Rick grabbed a pair of binoculars and ran outside. He could see Denver in the distance. The city looked strange. There was a faint glow around it, like a dome of light. Rick had read about things like this in science books, but he never thought he would see one. Jake was still flying when it happened. His plane was 20 miles outside Denver when every instrument in his cockpit stopped working. The engine kept running, but his radio was dead. His navigation system showed nothing but static. He looked toward Denver and his blood ran cold. A huge dome of blue light was forming over the city. It started small, just covering the downtown area. Then it grew bigger and bigger. Soon it covered all of Denver and the nearby towns. Jake tried to fly closer, but something pushed his plane back. It felt like hitting a wall made of air. He tried again from a different direction. Same result. Whatever was making the dome would not let him through. Inside the dome, people were starting to panic. Cars would not start. Phones did not work. Even flashlights had stopped working. The only light came from the blue glow above them. Lisa had made it to the edge of Denver when the dome appeared. She was inside it, trapped with everyone else. She got out of her car and walked toward the city center. Other people were doing the same thing. They all wanted to understand what was happening. As Lisa walked, she noticed something strange. The air inside the dome felt different. It was thicker somehow, and there was a humming sound, so low she could feel it in her bones, more than hear. Bobby Hayes tried to keep people calm, but he was scared too. He stood on the steps of City Hall and spoke to the crowd that had gathered. "Stay calm, everyone," he said. "We will figure this out. Help is coming." But Bobby did not know if help was coming. He did not even know what kind of help they needed. High above them, far beyond what any human eye could see, something huge was moving toward Earth. It was not from Earth. It was not even from the same part of the galaxy. The beings inside it had been watching Earth for a long time. They had decided that humans were interesting enough to study. The beings called themselves the Kethari. They were old, very old. They had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. They collected things from different worlds, animals, plants, and sometimes whole cities full of living creatures. Denver was their latest collection. The Cathari did not think of it as kidnapping. To them, it was science. They were gathering samples to learn about human civilization. They had done this to hundreds of other worlds. Most of the time, the planets they visited never even knew what had happened. But Earth was different from other worlds. The Cathari did not know this yet. They thought humans were just another primitive species. They had no idea what they were about to wake up. Jake kept circling the dome in his plane. He could see that it was getting brighter. The blue light was turning white. Then something incredible happened. The whole dome started to rise. Slowly at first, then faster, the entire city of Denver was lifting into the sky. Buildings, streets, parks, and 3 million people were all going up together. The dome was like a giant bubble carrying the city away from Earth. Jake followed as high as he could, but his plane could not go into space. He watched helplessly as Denver disappeared into the darkness above. Then he turned his plane around and flew back to base as fast as he could. Rick Barnes was waiting for him when he landed. "What did you see out there?" Rick asked. Jake took off his helmet. His hands were shaking. "They took it," he said. "They took the whole city. Denver is gone." Rick looked at the empty space where Denver used to be. There was just a big hole in the ground now. A perfectly round hole 3 miles across. At the bottom he could see broken pipes and cables where the city used to be connected to the world. The theft of Denver would change everything. Earth had always thought it was alone in the universe. Now they knew the truth. There were others out there. And those others had just declared war on humanity without even knowing it. The sleeping giant was about to wake up. President Helen Martinez stood in the White House Situation Room, staring at the satellite images on the big screen. Where Denver used to be, there was now just a giant hole. 3 million American citizens were gone, taken by something from space. "How is this possible?" she asked the room full of generals and scientists. General Frank Collins cleared his throat. He was the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. "Madam President, we have to face facts. We are not alone in the universe, and whoever took Denver has technology far beyond ours." Helen had been president for 2 years. She had dealt with wars, natural disasters, and economic problems, but nothing had prepared her for this. How do you tell the world that aliens exist and they just kidnapped an entire city? Dr. Alan Cross was pacing back and forth in his laboratory. He was the lead scientist on a secret project called Prometheus. For 5 years, his team had been trying to build a ship that could travel faster than light. Everyone said it was impossible. The math was too hard. The energy needed was too much. But now Dr. Cross had all the money and resources he wanted. The government was scared. They needed that ship, and they needed it fast. "How long do we have?" asked his assistant, Dr. Jenny. "Miller, the president gave us 72 hours to make it work," Alan said. 72 hours to do what we thought would take 10 years. Alan looked at the half-built ship in the hangar. It was called the Prometheus, named after the Greek god who stole fire from the gods and gave it to humans. The ship was humanity's attempt to steal the secret of space travel from the universe itself. Agent Kate Reynolds was in her office at the CIA, going through files that had been marked unusual for the past 20 years. Her boss had told her to look for anything that might be connected to aliens. Most of the reports seemed crazy. People claiming they saw flying saucers, farmers saying aliens took their cows. But some of the reports were different. They came from reliable sources. Military pilots, scientists, government officials. These reports described strange objects in the sky that moved in ways no human aircraft could move. Kate found something interesting. For the past 3 years, there had been reports of strange radio signals coming from space. The signals were very weak, but they were clearly artificial. Someone had been sending messages to Earth. The signals always came from the direction of Jupiter. She called her contact at NASA. "Jim, I need you to look at something. Can you point your biggest radio telescope at Jupiter and listen for signals? Jim laughed. Kate, we listen to Jupiter all the time. It makes a lot of radio noise naturally. No, I mean artificial signals. Someone talking to someone else. There was silence on the phone. Then Jim said, I'll call you back in an hour. When Jim called back, his voice was different. Scared. Kate, you need to get down here right now. You need to hear this. Meanwhile, around the world, people were starting to panic. The news of Denver's disappearance had spread quickly. Videos taken by cell phones showed the city rising into the sky. Governments tried to keep people calm, but fear was spreading faster than their words. In Tokyo, people looked up at the sky nervously. If aliens could take Denver, they could take Tokyo too. In London, the Prime Minister called an emergency meeting. In Moscow, the President ordered all military forces to be ready for anything. But the biggest changes were happening in secret places. In underground bunkers and hidden laboratories, projects that had been dreams became urgent reality. The Prometheus project was not the only secret program. For decades, governments around the world had been preparing for the possibility that Earth was not alone. Now all those preparations were being rushed into action. Dr. Cross and his team worked without stopping. They had built the ship's hull and engines, but the most important part was still missing. They needed to create a fold in space itself. This required technology that barely existed. The antimatter containment field is unstable, reported Dr. Miller. If we push it too hard, the whole ship could explode. If we don't push it hard enough, Denver stays gone, Alan replied. We have to take the risk. Agent Reynolds arrived at the NASA facility and was taken to a secure room. Jim played the recording for her. At first, it just sounded like static. Then she began to hear patterns. Voices, but not human voices. They spoke in sounds no human throat could make. We've been working on translating it, Jim said. Our computers have found some patterns. Look at this. He showed her a screen full of symbols and numbers. This part repeats a lot. We think it means sample acquired or something like that. And this number here, it shows up exactly when Denver disappeared. Kate felt a chill run down her spine. They were reporting back to someone. Denver wasn't random. They planned this. At the same time, President Martinez was addressing the nation on television. She stood behind the presidential podium, looking directly into the camera. My fellow Americans and people of the world, she began. Yesterday morning, we learned that we are not alone in the universe. Beings from another world have taken the city of Denver and its people. This is an act of war against all humanity. She paused, letting her words sink in. But we will not surrender. We will not hide. For too long, we have looked up at the stars and wondered if anyone else was out there. Now we know, and now they will learn what it means to threaten the human race. The president's speech was broadcast around the world. In every language, the message was the same. Humanity would fight back, but first they had to learn how to fight in space. Dr. Cross and his team were humanity's best hope for that. With 36 hours left, the Prometheus was starting to look like a real spaceship. It was not big or beautiful, like the starships in movies. It looked more like a submarine with rocket engines attached, but it was built for one purpose: to travel between stars and find Denver. Antimatter drive is online, reported Dr. Miller. Power levels are stable, Doctor. Cross took a deep breath. Initialize the fold drive. The ship began to hum. Energy flowed through its systems like blood through veins. In the center of the ship, a small piece of space began to bend and twist. It was working. With 12 hours left, Agent Reynolds made another discovery. The alien signals were not just coming from Jupiter. They were coming from a specific spot near Jupiter. Something big was hiding there. It's a ship, she told General Collins over the phone. Or maybe a space station. It's been there for months, maybe years. That's where they took Denver. General Collins immediately called President Martinez. Madam President, we know where our people are. They're being held at Jupiter. Helen Martinez made a decision that would change human history. As soon as the Prometheus is ready, we're going to get them back. The Prometheus launched 18 hours ahead of schedule. Dr. Cross had pushed his team beyond their limits, and they had done the impossible. The ship's fold drive created a tunnel through space itself. What should have taken months of travel would take only hours. Captain Steve Parker commanded the ship. He was the best pilot in the Earth Defense Force, chosen to lead humanity's first journey to another planet. With him were 200 of Earth's finest soldiers and scientists. As the Prometheus disappeared into its fold in space, people around the world watched and prayed. Humanity was no longer trapped on one world. They were about to become something new, something the aliens had never seen before. The Cathari had made their first mistake. They thought humans were just another primitive species to be studied and catalogued. They had no idea that taking Denver would wake up something that had been sleeping for thousands of years. The human spirit was about to show the galaxy what it could do when it was angry. Captain Steve Parker felt his stomach drop as the Prometheus came out of fold space near Jupiter. Through the ship's windows, he could see the giant planet spinning slowly in the darkness. But that was not what made him stare in wonder. Floating near Jupiter was the biggest artificial structure he had ever seen. It was at least 50 miles long and 20 miles wide. The alien station looked like a giant crystal that someone had carved into a complex shape. Lights moved through it like blood through veins. "Dear God," whispered Chief Engineer Nancy Brooks from beside him. "How did they build something that big?" Lieutenant Danny Miller was studying his instruments. Danny had grown up in Denver. His parents and younger sister had been in the city when it was taken. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures from that station, and I'm picking up something else." "What is it?" Steve asked. Danny's voice was shaking. "It's Denver, sir. The whole city is inside that thing, in some kind of biodome. I can see the buildings on the scanner." Steve looked at his crew. 200 people from Earth flying in a ship that had been built in 3 days. They were about to make contact with beings who could pluck cities from planets. Everyone was scared, but no one suggested turning back. Commander Lisa Torres led the Marine Battalion on the ship. She was a tough woman who had fought in 3 wars on Earth. But this was different. This was not fighting other humans. This was fighting creatures from another world. "Marines ready for anything, Captain?" she reported. "We brought every weapon we could fit on this ship." Steve nodded. "Let's hope we don't need them. Nancy, take us closer to that station." Slowly. As the Prometheus moved toward the alien structure, more details became visible. The station was not just one building. It was hundreds of connected sections, each one the size of a city. Some sections were transparent, and they could see strange creatures moving inside. "Captain," said the communications officer, "we're being scanned. Something is looking at our ship very carefully." Suddenly, the main view screen flickered to life. An image appeared that made everyone on the bridge step back. It was not like any alien from the movies. The creature looked like it was made of living crystal. It had no face that humans could recognize, but somehow it was clearly looking at them. When it spoke, its voice came from everywhere at once. The words appeared in their minds rather than their ears. "Small beings from the third planet," the voice said. "You have traveled far from your world. This is unexpected. Your species was classified as pre-spaceflight." Steve straightened his shoulders. He was about to become the first human to speak with an alien intelligence. "I am Captain Steve Parker of the Earth ship Prometheus. You have taken our people without permission. We demand their return." The alien made a sound that might have been laughter. "Demand? You are in no position to make demands, small being. I am Prime Consciousness Zethkar of the Cathari Collective. We have taken samples from your species for scientific study. This is standard procedure." Standard procedure? Steve felt his anger rising. Those are 3 million human beings. They have families, dreams, lives of their own. They are not samples. All species believe their individual units are important, Zethkar replied. This is a primitive thinking pattern. We have studied 47,381 species across the galaxy. Yours is not special. Danny Miller stepped forward. My family is in there. My parents, my little sister. They're not units or samples. They're people. Zethkar's crystal form shifted colors. Your emotional attachment to genetic relatives is noted. This reaction is common among less evolved species. Do not concern yourself. The samples will be preserved indefinitely for study. Steve realized that talking was not going to work. These aliens did not think like humans. To them, taking Denver was like a scientist collecting insects. The people inside might as well be ants. Show us the city, Steve demanded. Prove to us that our people are alive. The view screen changed. Now they could see Denver as it sat inside a massive transparent dome. The city looked almost normal, except for the strange light that filled the dome. People could be seen walking in the streets, but they moved slowly, like they were in a dream. The samples are maintained in optimal condition, Zethkar explained. We have suppressed their higher brain functions to prevent distress. They experience a pleasant dream state while we study their biological and social patterns. Nancy Brooks was studying her instruments. Captain, that dome is held in place by some kind of gravitational field. If we could disrupt it. Steve made a decision that would change human history. All hands prepare for combat. We're going to get our people back. Zethkar seemed surprised. Combat? Your single vessel against our fleet? This is illogical. You cannot succeed. Maybe not, Steve said. But we're going to try. That's what humans do. The Prometheus attacked the alien station with everything it had. Human weapons were primitive compared to alien technology. But they had one advantage the Cathari had never encountered before. Humans could think of new ways to fight in the middle of a battle. The station's defenses expected logical, predictable attacks. Instead, the Prometheus used tactics that made no sense to the alien collective mind. Steve ordered random course changes, sudden stops, and attacks from impossible angles. Commander Torres and her Marines used the ship's teleporter to beam directly onto the station. The aliens had never seen anything like human soldiers. Each Marine thought independently, adapted to new situations instantly, and fought with a fury that confused the collective consciousness. The Cathari were powerful, but they were used to fighting other collective minds that thought in organized patterns. Human chaos was something completely new. Danny Miller found the control room for Denver's dome. The alien technology was beyond human understanding, but Danny did not try to understand it. He just started breaking things until something worked. The dome around Denver flickered and failed. For the first time in days, the people of Denver woke up from their drugged sleep. They found themselves in a giant alien structure surrounded by creatures from nightmare, but they also found something else. They found human soldiers fighting to rescue them. Mayor Bobby Hayes, who had been in a dreamlike state for days, suddenly came fully awake in his city hall office. Outside his window, instead of Colorado sky, he could see the swirling clouds of Jupiter. But he could also see something wonderful. A ship with Earth Defense Force written on its side was firing at the aliens who had captured his city, people of Denver. Bobby's voice echoed through the city's emergency speakers. This is your mayor. Stay calm and follow the soldiers in Earth uniforms. We're going home. The battle raged for hours. The Prometheus was badly damaged, but it had accomplished something impossible. The ship managed to rescue 50,000 people from Denver before the aliens could react properly. As the Prometheus prepared to escape back to Earth, Zethkar's voice filled the ship one more time. You have made a grave error, humans. The Cathari Empire spans 12,000 star systems. We have existed for 50,000 of your years. You cannot fight us. Steve Parker, bleeding from a head wound but still standing, looked directly at the alien on the screen. You're right about one thing, he said. We can't fight your whole empire, but we just proved something important. We can hurt you, and we will keep hurting you until you give back every human being you've taken. The Prometheus escaped through fold space, carrying 50,000 rescued Denver citizens back to Earth. But they left behind 2.9 million people still trapped in the alien station. The rescue was both a victory and a failure, but it proved something that would shake the galaxy. Humans would not go quietly into the night. They would fight for their people no matter what the odds. Zethkar watched the human ship disappear and felt something the Cathari had not experienced in thousands of years: uncertainty. These humans were not like other species they had encountered. They were unpredictable, violent, and completely unwilling to accept their fate. For the first time, the Prime Consciousness wondered if taking samples from Earth had been a mistake. Back on Earth, the 50,000 rescued people told their stories. The world learned about the vast alien empire that saw humans as nothing more than interesting insects. But they also learned that the empire could be fought. President Martinez addressed the world again. "Today we saved 50,000 of our people. Tomorrow we will save the rest. And after that we will make sure that no alien force ever threatens Earth again." The war between humanity and the Cathari Empire had begun. It would be a war unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Prime Consciousness Zethkar had ruled the Cathari Empire for 800 years. In all that time, no harvested species had ever fought back successfully. The humans had done more than fight back. They had actually rescued some of their people from the most secure research station in the Empire. This could not be allowed to continue. Zethkar sent a message across 12,000 star systems. For the first time in centuries, the full military might of the Cathari Empire would be used. 500 warships began moving toward the small blue planet called Earth. Admiral Tony Blake stood in the command center of humanity's first space fleet. 6 months had passed since the Prometheus brought back the Denver survivors. In those 6 months, Earth had changed completely. Every factory on the planet was now building spaceships or weapons. Every person with any technical skill was working on the war effort. Children learned about space combat in school instead of reading and math. Tony had been promoted from captain to admiral in just 4 months. Earth needed experienced space commanders, and there were not many humans who had ever fought a battle in space. "How many ships do we have ready?" Tony asked his assistant, Captain Bill Roberts. 57 combat vessels, sir. They're not as advanced as the alien ships, but they can fight." Tony looked out at Earth's orbital shipyards. Human engineering had made incredible advances in just a few months. When you are fighting for your species' survival, you learn fast. Dr. Sam Peterson ran the new Weapons Research Division. Before the alien attack, Sam had been working on better medical equipment. Now he spent his days figuring out how to kill crystalline beings who could control gravity with their minds. "The key is their collective consciousness," Sam explained to his team. "They all think together like a hive mind. That makes them strong, but it also makes them predictable." Sam's weapons were designed around human advantages. Humans could not control gravity or bend space with their thoughts, but humans could think of new ideas very quickly. They could change plans in the middle of a fight. They could be completely crazy when they needed to be. Colonel Amy Watson had become the most feared human in the galaxy, though she did not know it yet. She led the Special Forces teams that attacked Cathari facilities throughout the solar system. Amy's latest mission was to hit a small alien outpost on one of Saturn's moons. The outpost was studying the wreckage of old human satellites. The aliens wanted to understand human technology. Amy and her team used a new type of ship that could not be detected by alien sensors. It was painted completely black and made no sound as it moved through space. The aliens never saw it coming. The attack lasted exactly 17 minutes. When it was over, the outpost was destroyed, and Amy's team had captured 3 alien prisoners. But more importantly, they had sent a message. Humans could strike anywhere in their own solar system. The 3 captured aliens were taken to a secret facility on the moon. Dr. Lisa Campbell, the scientist who had first studied alien energy signatures, was put in charge of questioning them. Lisa discovered something important. The Cathari were not just evil conquerors. In their own minds, they were scientists. They truly believed that studying other species was more important than the lives of individuals. "We preserve knowledge," one of the aliens told her through a translation device. "Individual lives are temporary. Knowledge is eternal." "But we're not just knowledge," Lisa replied. "We're people. We have feelings, hopes, dreams. The alien seemed confused by this. Feelings are chemical reactions. Dreams are random neural activity. Why do you value such things? Lisa realized that the two species might never understand each other. Humans valued individual life above everything else. The Cathari valued collective knowledge above individual life. It was a difference that could not be bridged. While Lisa studied the aliens, Admiral Blake was preparing for the biggest space battle in human history. Intelligence reports said that a massive alien fleet was approaching Earth. 500 ships, each one more advanced than anything humanity had ever built. We can't win a straight fight, Blake told President Martinez in a video conference. They have us outnumbered 10-1 and their technology is centuries ahead of ours. Then what do you suggest? The president asked. Blake smiled. We don't fight fair. We fight like humans. The Battle of Wolf 359 began when the Cathari fleet dropped out of fold space near the small red star. They expected to find Earth's pathetic fleet waiting for them in orderly battle formation. Instead, they found chaos. Admiral Blake had spread his 50 ships across a huge area of space. Some ships were hiding behind asteroids, others were disguised as space debris. A few were actually inside the Wolf 359 star itself, using new heat shields that Dr. Peterson's team had invented. When the alien fleet arrived, the human ships attacked from every direction at once. Each ship used different tactics. There was no overall plan except to cause as much confusion as possible. The Cathari collective consciousness tried to analyze the human attack patterns, but there were no patterns to analyze. Every human captain was making up his own battle plan as the fight went on. Captain Janet Hill commanded the destroyer EDS Denver. She had lost her brother in the original harvest of the city. When she saw the alien flagship, she made a decision that would be remembered for centuries. All power to engines, she ordered. We're going to ram them. Her crew thought she had gone crazy, but they followed her orders. The Denver accelerated straight toward the alien flagship, firing every weapon it had. The Cathari could not understand this tactic. Ramming attacks made no logical sense. The Denver would be destroyed, and it would only damage one enemy ship. But humans were not always logical. The Denver struck the alien flagship just as Janet activated the ship's self-destruct system. The explosion tore a hole in the massive Cathari vessel. More importantly, it damaged the ship's collective consciousness node. For the first time in their history, part of the Cathari fleet was cut off from the group mind. 12 ships suddenly had to think for themselves. They had no idea how to do this. The battle raged for 6 hours. When it was over, the human fleet had lost 32 ships, but the alien fleet had lost 78 ships, including their flagship. More importantly, the humans had rescued the crews of 17 destroyed alien vessels. Among those rescued were 3,000 beings from other species that the Cathari had harvested over the centuries. These rescued aliens became humanity's first galactic allies. They had been slaves of the Empire for generations. They had watched their homeworld stripped of people and resources, but they had never seen anyone successfully fight back against the Cathari. Vextar had been taken from his world when he was young. His species looked like giant insects, but they were peaceful farmers. The Cathari had harvested his entire planet to study agricultural techniques. Your people fight with honor, Vextar told Admiral Blake after the battle. We will fight beside you. Other rescued species said the same thing. Word began to spread across the galaxy. The humans were fighting the Empire, and they were winning. Colonel Watson's next mission was the most ambitious yet. Intelligence had located a major Cathari research facility in the Alpha Centauri system. The facility held harvested populations from over 200 worlds. Amy's team included volunteers from 12 different species, former slaves of the Empire who wanted revenge. It was the first truly galactic military unit in history. The attack on the Alpha Centauri facility was a complete success. Amy's mixed species team rescued over 50,000 beings from dozens of worlds. More importantly, they captured the facility's complete database. The database revealed the true scope of the Cathari Empire. 50,000 years of conquest, thousands of harvested worlds, millions of enslaved species. It was a record of the greatest crime in galactic history. But the database also revealed something else. The Empire was not as strong as it appeared. The collective consciousness that ruled the Cathari was maintained by a network of special stations throughout the galaxy. If those stations could be destroyed, the Empire would collapse. President Martinez made a decision that would change the galaxy forever. Earth would not just fight for its own people, it would fight to free every enslaved species in the Empire. We're not just fighting for Denver anymore, she announced to the world. We're fighting for the freedom of every thinking being in the galaxy. The announcement was broadcast to every world that had communication technology. Across the galaxy, enslaved species heard the message. The humans were coming to set them free. The Cathari Empire had existed for 50,000 years. It had seemed eternal and unbeatable. But it had one weakness that its creators had never considered. They had never faced a species that believed individual freedom was worth dying for. The Empire was about to learn what happens when you threaten something that humans consider sacred. The war was no longer about one harvested city. It was about the soul of the galaxy itself. 2 years after the harvest of Denver, Fleet Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the EDS Liberation. He was no longer the simple patrol pilot who had watched his city disappear. He was now the commander of the largest fleet in galactic history. 10,000 ships from 300 different worlds surrounded him in the darkness of space. Every ship carried beings who had been slaves of the Cathari Empire. Now they were free and they were angry. Jake looked at the tactical display. Ahead of them lay Cathari Prime, the crystal homeworld where the Empire had begun 50,000 years ago. It was the most heavily defended planet in the galaxy. It was also the source of the collective consciousness that controlled every Cathari in existence. All fleet commanders, this is Admiral Morrison. Jake spoke into his communications device. Today we end 50,000 years of slavery. Today we give the galaxy back to the people who live in it. President Helen Martinez was no longer just the leader of Earth. She now served as the first president of the Galactic Liberation Council. Representatives from 300 worlds had chosen Earth as the capital of their new government. Helen stood in the council chambers on Luna, Earth's moon, watching the battle through long-range sensors. The fate of every thinking being in the Yao galaxy would be decided in the next few hours. Dr. Lisa Campbell had spent 2 years studying Cathari technology and biology. She had made a discovery that changed everything. The collective consciousness that ruled the Empire was not just a way of thinking. It was a physical network of quantum connections between every Cathari brain. If we can disrupt that network, Lisa had explained to the War Council, every Cathari will suddenly become an individual. They'll have to think for themselves for the first time in their species' history. The weapon Lisa had designed was not a bomb or an energy beam. It was a frequency generator that would force individual consciousness on the collective mind. In human terms, it would give the Cathari free will. Commander Rick Barnes, Jake's old boss, led the ground assault on Cathari Prime. 2 years of fighting had changed Rick from a desk commander into a battle-hardened warrior. He had volunteered for the most dangerous mission in the war. Rick's assault team included humans and aliens working together. Vextar, the insect-like being rescued from the Wolf 359 battle, fought beside human marines. Former Cathari slaves guided the team through the crystal cities of the homeworld. The planet's surface was like nothing any human had ever seen. Entire cities were grown from living crystal. Spires reached into the sky like frozen lightning. The air itself hummed with the psychic energy of the collective consciousness. Remember, Rick told his team as they approached the central consciousness node, we're not here to destroy the Cathari. We're here to free them. The battle for Cathari Prime was unlike any other battle in the war. The planet's defenders fought with desperate fury. They knew that if the consciousness network was destroyed, their civilization would change forever. But the Liberation Fleet had advantages that no previous attacker had possessed. They had former Cathari slaves who knew every weakness of the Empire's defenses. They had technology stolen from captured alien facilities. Most importantly, they had the human ability to think of new solutions in the middle of a crisis. Jake, Morrison used a tactic that no military academy would have approved. He ordered half his fleet to attack the planet directly, while the other half attacked the space stations that supported the consciousness network. The Cathari defenders had to choose between protecting their homeworld and protecting the network. That controlled their minds. The collective consciousness split its attention between two equally important targets. That moment of confusion was all the humans needed. Commander Barnes reached the central node just as Jake's ships destroyed the last orbital station. The consciousness network began to flicker and fail. Dr. Campbell activated her frequency generator from the Liberation science deck. Quantum pulses spread across the planet at the speed of light. Every Cathari mind was suddenly cut off from the collective. For the first time in 50,000 years, millions of Cathari had to think as individuals. The result was chaos. Some Cathari collapsed, overwhelmed by the sudden silence in their minds. Others went into a rage, attacking everything around them, but many simply stopped fighting and looked around in wonder. Prime consciousness. Zethkar was in his command center when the network failed. For 800 years he had been part of something larger than himself. Now he was alone in his own mind. The feeling was terrifying and wonderful at the same time. "What have you done to us?" Zethkar asked, when Jake Morrison arrived at the command center. "We've given you what every human is born with," Jake replied. "The right to think for yourself." Zethkar's crystal form was flickering with confused colors. "But without the collective, how do we know what is right? How do we make decisions?" Jake smiled. "You figure it out as you go along. That's what being free means." The war ended not with a great explosion, but with a choice. Every Cathari on every world had to decide what they wanted to do with their new individual freedom. Many chose to continue their scientific work, but now they asked permission before studying other species. Some decided to explore the galaxy, as individuals rather than as parts of a collective. A few even asked to join the human fleet and learn about this strange concept called free will. Denver was finally returned to Earth, along with every other harvested city and population. But the city that came back was different from the one that had been taken. The people had seen the galaxy. They had experienced wonders and horrors beyond imagination. They could never be the same again. Mayor Bobby Hayes stood in his office, looking out at the Colorado mountains. Denver was back where it belonged, but now it was also connected to a galaxy full of free worlds. "We're not just a city in Colorado anymore," he told his staff. "We're a symbol. We're the place where the galaxy learned that no one has the right to steal freedom from others." Dr. Lisa Campbell established the Galactic Institute for Xenobiology on Earth. Scientists from hundreds of worlds came to study with her, but now they studied each other as equals, not as specimens. Colonel Amy Watson became the first human to command a truly galactic military force. Her mission was to make sure that no species ever again enslaved another. Agent Kate Reynolds founded the Galactic Intelligence Service, keeping watch for any signs that the old empire might try to rebuild itself. The Cathari homeworld became the capital of a new kind of government. Former slaves worked alongside their former masters to build a galaxy based on individual rights rather than collective control. Some of the freed Cathari adapted well to individual thinking. Others struggled with concepts like personal choice and responsibility. But they were all learning, with help from species that had always known what freedom meant. President Martinez stood before the Galactic Council 5 years after Denver's return. Representatives from over 1,000 worlds had gathered to sign the Galactic Charter of Rights. "Today we declare that every thinking being has certain rights that cannot be taken away," she said. "The right to think freely, the right to choose their own path, the right to live without fear of being harvested or enslaved." Jake Morrison returned to his old job as a patrol pilot, but now he patrolled the entire galaxy instead of just one city. Earth had become the center of galactic civilization, and humans had become the guardians of freedom throughout the stars. The transformation was remarkable. In just 3 years, humanity had gone from a single planet species to the leaders of galactic government. They had done it not through superior technology or military might, but through superior ideas. The idea that individuals matter more than collectives. The idea that freedom is worth fighting for. The idea that every thinking being deserves the right to choose their own destiny. The galaxy had learned these ideas from the species that once lived on a small blue planet near a yellow star. A species that refused to accept slavery, even when fighting back seemed impossible. The Cathari Empire had lasted 50,000 years. It fell in 3 years, brought down by the simple human belief that no one has the right to steal another person's freedom. Denver had been returned to Earth, but its real legacy lived on in every free world across the galaxy. The city that had been harvested as a scientific sample had become the symbol of liberation for countless species. Humanity had kept its promise. They had shattered the Galactic Empire. They had given freedom back to the stars themselves. And it had all started with one kidnapped city and the refusal of one species to accept that their people could be taken without consequence. The sleeping giant had awakened, and the galaxy would never be the same.